فرخنده باد روز جهانی زن به تمام زنان و مردانی که پشتیبان زنان هستن برای گرفتن حقوق مدنیشون.
On behalf of the Iranian Circle of Women's Intercultural Network, ICWIN, I am Vida Ghaffari, and I will be your MC today. We have an exciting, engaging, educating, and empowering program planned for today. I am sure we will all be informed, inspired, and illuminated. To begin, we will be introduced to the hosting group, ICWIN, and the significance of today's celebration, International Women's Day. You know that across the globe this year has been recognized as the Year of the Woman. Women are claiming their time and imagining an equal future by being more present, more vocal, brave, and bold for change. So that is exactly the theme of this event. Also this year, the UN has focused on girls and young women, ages 15 to 40, because they are the present and the future, and it is important that they carry the torch that has been lit by women before them. Every year, the UN Council sets a theme for International Women's Day. This year, the organizers of IWD are asking supporters to press for progress. We have urgent work to do. Are you ready to press for progress this Women's History Month and beyond? Ms. Elahe Amani, WIN's chair of Global Circle and member of ICWIN's steering committee, will introduce our first guest. Please give a warm welcome to the lovely Ms. Elahe Amani.
I always have to adjust the microphone, except when I was talking in China. Welcome, good afternoon. It's truly an honor for me to introduce Ms. Gloria Arbenez, an elder of Tanwa, the original inhabitant of Los Angeles. Women's Intercultural Network always starts our event with a blessing from Indigenous women. If we are going to hold an event, march and rally on Indigenous people land, we should honor them by having their prayer to honor their women, their elders, honor the Indigenous people of the land that was occupied. Thank you, Gloria, for accepting our invitation. Gloria Arbenez was born in East Los Angeles. Her father was first-generation Mexican-American from Chihuahua, and her mother was Tanwa Native American. Gloria witnessed race riots during her high school years. She joined a group that later was named Brown Berets. She was the only woman to hold a major leadership position as the Minister of Finance and Correspondence for the founding chapter. She inspired and actively participated in Chicana feminist movement. Gloria managed the El Barrio Free Clinic. She then organized Ardilitas Di Aslan, a women's group, and started another free group, La Clinica de Barrios. She attended the Poor People's Campaign in Washington, D.C., 1968, and the Denver Youth Conference, 1969 and 1970. She was also an organizer for Chicana Moratorium against Vietnam War. For more than 40 years, Gloria has been at the forefront of Chicana and Native movements in Los Angeles, Tanwa land. Gloria's papers are part of the online California State University Los Angeles archive. She's called by many grandma, and as she shares her vast and rich experience as teaching from a grandma. Gloria is now an elder of Tanwa tribe, and I'm truly honored to introduce her and have her opening our event for International Women's Day. Thank you.
Mi hija, abaja, neshun achama. Noktokot Tongba. Netwaing Pesagasun Havut. Hello and welcome. My name is Gloria Arianes. My traditional native name in ceremony is Spirit Blanket, and I am Tongva. I'm an elder of the land. The land you are on right now is Tongva, and all of the Los Angeles Basin for the Channel Islands, parts of Orange, San Bernardino, and Riverside County were our Tongva land. We don't give up our lands. It may be built on and developed and owned by other people, but it's still our land. I remind people every day that you drive upon Tongva land, you walk upon Tongva land, you go to work on Tongva land, you probably live in Tongva land, and all the homes and buildings here, all the concrete is built upon our villages and our burial grounds. I work right now currently at Bolsa Chica, a sacred site to us, where 167 of our ancestors were removed and reburied. It took us a lot of years, probably about 50 years to get those items, our ancestors reburied. Also at Cal State Long Beach, Puvungna is a sacred site. And the university has been very good to us to allow us to have an area to the side where they were going to build a strip mall, and we fought them. We went through many courts, and we did win that. So we get to use, yes, that's an accomplishment because, thank you. Land is not returned to us. We don't have a reservation because California has rich land. We have ocean land. And that's the most expensive houses, except for the hills. People tend to have very expensive homes up in the hills. So it's always a battle for us, but we have never given up. They tried to erase us when the colonizers came to Los Angeles, starting with Christopher Columbus, who never stopped on our lands, but left all his soldiers who raped, brought disease, and tortured our people, and took our children back to Europe as slaves, sexual slaves. And so Indigenous Peoples Day in the city of Los Angeles, we fought for that, we won, and we can celebrate that now. Our battles may be small that we win, but we win. And they try to erase us, taking our language, our regalia, our ceremonies, our way of living, and put us in missions, made the women dress from neck down to ankle, and we were wearing tree bark skirts and maybe nothing on top because we have this beautiful California weather here. And we were logical people. We didn't have things that we didn't need. We only used what was natural resources and what was needed to survive and live. And we were very happy. And Columbus brought disorder to our world. He said we didn't have order, and that they considered us to be not human, not praying like they did in a Christian way. So we had to learn how to survive. But we're like seeds, and they never could get rid of us. They did not erase us. We are here. Thank you very much. I want to thank Elaha for the invitation to come here today. I met this beautiful woman about exactly a year ago, and it was at the Women's Indigenous International Day in downtown Los Angeles. And she came up and asked if she could talk to me, and she introduced me to some of the women that were there. And I was very honored, as I am honored to be here today. This is very important for me to do. We need to build bridges amongst ourselves with the diversity within Los Angeles. There's so much diversity in Los Angeles. And I feel it's important to connect with all the different groups that are here. And you have to excuse me, I walk a little slow these days. And today I'm 72 years old. Yay, that's an accomplishment. So today, I'm a little broken body-wise, but I still got, and nobody can keep me down, okay? I will come around in a wheelchair if I have to, and I have in the past, in part of my healing. But I'm very thankful to be here today. I look forward to meeting you as much as possible. I do have to leave early. My son wants to take me out for my birthday, and that includes my grandchildren and my two dear friends here. And this is Dr. Salas. I want to introduce her. Dr. Susan Salas from Cal State Long Beach. She's a professor there, and she works in social work. And Debbie Jones, who's a dear friend. And she's another warrior lady. You know, you see a rally, she's going to be there. Or some kind of protest, she's there. So let me start with a prayer. We do this to honor the ancestors and the spirits of the world, our area. Normally we would call the spirits in with a medicine to the 4 directions, but we won't do that today. I'm going to sit, if you don't mind, if I'm a little rude doing this here, but my legs are getting really wobbly. Just sit right here. This is good. Thank you. I'm good. So forgive me for sitting. Normally I would stand during a prayer, giving honor, but grandmother, grandfather, creator, spirits of the 4 directions, ancestors of the land, spirits of the land, I welcome you to surround the people here today to bring good energy and good health, much love. Creator, I ask in a good way for you to give us blessings for our children, because everything we teach them, they will be the next people to up and come, Creator. Bless all the young people in Florida who are so powerful at this time, coming out of misery and pain and loss. Creator, I ask for blessings for all those young people and young people across this country. I ask for blessings for all the elders. You have the wisdom, and you must continue to give that wisdom to your children and do that in a good way. I ask for blessings for all the people in-betweeners, teenagers, adults, soon-to-be elders and Creator, and I ask that they continue to carry good messages and learn good things, Creator. We live in a very hard time, Creator, and I ask for us that pain to be eased that has been thrown upon so many people throughout the world. I pray for guns to go away from our communities. I pray for them to go away from the world. They do nothing but kill and destroy. Creator, I ask in a good way, please bring peace to everybody in the world, especially here right now in this room, that I ask that the people carry within their heart good messages and good words and much love. Creator, I ask for your blessings for the plant nations. We need the plants. They're part of life. They were always part of the natural world, and they're being destroyed by the GMOs that are being put in our food. The air has toxins. The oil is bringing toxins, and our blessed waters are being contaminated, Creator, and we ask for them to be cleaned, and that we have fresh water, that the animals, the 4-leggeds, the winged ones, the ones that swim in the oceans, the ones that crawl upon Mother Earth, and those unseen, Creator, I ask that you bring help to all of us, because our world is changing drastically with fires, with floods, with high winds, snow, weather that we have not seen in many, many years. So things are changing drastically, Creator, and I ask in a good way, please bring the goodness back to our lifestyles. I ask in a good way, and to be humble, and to keep my focus for my eyes to see and understand and not go to a dark side. It would be easy for people to go to hatred, which we have too much already. But to stay good, Creator, keep our hearts good and our words good. I pray for this as a humble woman, and I ask for much, I understand, but I ask in a good way, Creator. I thank you for the blessing of being in this room today with all these wonderful people. Whatever their prayer requests are, Creator, I hope that you will grant them that. And for people who are ill, who could not join us today, I'm praying that they are well, that they are healthy. All those who suffer from pain of the mind, pain of the heart, and the physical body, Creator, I also ask for healing for them in a good way, and that they are comfortable. Aho, thank you so much. Neshuna Chama. Thank you very much. Oh, thank
Gloria met me last year, but I knew about Gloria for the last maybe 15, 18 years that I was teaching in Women Studies program at Cal State Long Beach and talking about Chicana feminist movement. She met me last year. I knew about her for a long time. Good afternoon and salam. Today, March 4th, 2018, I'm congratulating all of us on Happy International Women's Month. And now we are going to go back in times from 2018 to 1908. In 1908, 15,000 women marched through New York City demanding shorter hours, better pay, and voting rights. 2 years later, in 1910, International Conference of Working Women was held in Copenhagen. A woman named Clara Zetkin, leader of the Women's Office for the Social Democratic Party in Germany, tabled the idea of an International Women's Day. She proposed that every year in every country there should be a celebration on the same day, a Women's Day, to press for their demands. The conference of over 100 women from 17 countries greeted Zatkins and suggested her suggestion with anonymous approval, and thus International Women's Day was the result. In 1911, more than 1 million women and men attended International Women's Day, campaigning for women's rights, but in less than a week later, on 25th of March of the same year, the tragic Triangle Fire in New York City took the lives of more than 140 working women, most of them Italian and Jewish immigrants. This disastrous event drew significant attention to working condition and labor legislation in the United States that became a focus of subsequent International Women's Day event. In December 1977, the General Assembly of United Nations adopted a resolution proclaiming a United Nations Day for Women's Rights and International Peace to be observed on any day of the year by the member states in accordance with their historical and national traditions. Today, International Women's Day is an official holiday in 24 countries for everyone, and in 4 countries, only for women. In some countries, it's customary that men give flowers to the women in their lives, mothers, wives, daughters, and friends. This year, International Women's Day comes on the heels of unprecedented global movement for women's rights, equality, and justice. This has taken form the global marches, campaigns, individual resistance of women, including #MeToo movement and #TimesUp movement in United States and their counterparts in other countries, as well as the brave Iranian younger woman who is standing against compulsory hijab in different cities of Iran. This year, the theme of International Women's Day, March 8th, at United Nations is Time is Now, Rural and Urban Activists Transforming Women's Lives. The upcoming 62th session of United Nations Commission on the Status of Women priority team will draw attention to the rights and activism of rural women, farm workers women, who makes up over a quarter of the world's population and are being left behind in every measure of development. In the landscape of the women's struggle in US, Women's Intercultural Network, ICWIN, was established in 1995, few months before historical United Nations 4th International Women Conference in Beijing, China. by visionaries such as Marilyn Fowler. Unfortunately, Marilyn couldn't join us today. She had a stroke 2 weeks ago, and we are sending her our love and praise for her speedy recovery. So, WIN was established by visionaries such as Marilyn Fowler, president of Women's Intercultural Network, and Eileen Hernandez, rest in peace, second president of National Organization of Women, and appointed by Lyndon Johnson in 1964 as the only woman to serve on the newly established Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. WIN is a 501c3 non-governmental organization with consultative status with United Nations Economic and Social Council. WIN is not an organization that networks, but rather a network that organizes. WIN mission is to assure that all the voices of all women and girls are heard in public forums for full participation in their government and economies, and expand the circle of women and girls' leadership for collective action. WIN calls for circles of women from all communities to collaborate and cooperate with our mission, as well as bringing their communities' unique needs and advocacy to the table. Why circle? A circle is symbolic of equality, where no person is more prominent than any other person. Circle meetings ensure that all people are allowed to speak and the words spoken were accepted and respected on equal basis. The circle has no break and holds that which cannot be broken. In many countries in West and South Asia, communities always sit in circle, and many Iranian ethnic dances such as Kurdish dance or Khuzestani dance, as well as indigenous powwows, are organized in a series of circles. This is why Women's Intercultural Network have circles with women in Japan, Uganda, Afghanistan, as well as with indigenous women in Northern California and farm workers women in Central Valley of California. The Iranian Circle of Women's Intercultural Network was established in 2015 and had its inaugural event on January 17, 2016. ICWIN is inspired to be an agent of change for gender equality, empowerment, and peace. ICWIN vision is to build bridges with other community-based organizations in Iranian communities, as well as groups, organizations, and networks outside of our community to empower women and girls for collective action. ICWIN was instrumental in CEDAW resolution to be passed, which is the Rights of Women, Bill of Rights of Women, in city of Long Beach. In the last 3 years, a delegation of Iranian women from California attended UN Commission on the Status of Women. ICWIN also had a strong presence at the Women's March in 2017. We attended the inaugural Women's March Convention in Detroit, presented workshop and talked about the immigrant communities, including Iranian communities. WIN and ICWIN also was an official partner at the anniversary Women's March in LA, and will have a voice at the Global Women's Strike and Rally on March 8 in Los Angeles. WIN and ICWIN will be present at the UN Commission on the Status of Women and have a panel this year. The panel that we have at UN Commission on the Status of Women on March 15 titles is Empowering Rural Women and Girls Behind Digital Curtains. In preparation for this panel and our public statement to UN, we called to action in Central Valley. On November 3rd and 4th, we brought together farm workers, women, and NGO working for the empowerment of women and girls in Central Valley in Visalia, to hear their voices and learn about their challenges. The sexual assault and poor health for farm workers and their families because of pesticides and, of course, poverty are among their serious challenges. ICWIN is taking a delegation of 7 farm workers, women. They don't even speak English. We are taking them to UN, and we arranged that they speak the truth about their situation to the global community. International Women's Day is a time to reflect on progress made, to call for change, and to celebrate acts of courage and determination by ordinary women who have played an extraordinary role in the history of their communities and countries. We are celebrating the brave Iranian women who are standing against compulsory hijab in Iran. We are celebrating the persistence of women in US in claiming and reclaiming our time. We are celebrating the indigenous people in South Dakota. We are celebrating the Black Lives Matters. We are celebrating the women in Rwanda. In their country leads the world share of women in national legislature, with women holding 64% of the seats of the lower house, the largest share of any country. For comparison, only 19% of the seats in US House are held by women. We are celebrating female negotiators and civil society members who played a critical role in making peace accord possible in Colombia this year. We are celebrating Nadia Murad, who was among the more than 5,000 Yazidi women who was captured by ISIS and repeatedly abused and raped. She was tortured for over 3 months before successfully escaping refugee camp, and she is now a human rights defender. We are celebrating Leshia Evans and Black Lives Matter. She stood in billowing dress as armed policemen charged towards her in Louisiana. She became an iconic symbol of peaceful, defiant protest. We are celebrating countless and nameless unsung heroes who are working tirelessly for peace, as gender equality will not be achieved without sustainable peace. We are celebrating women and men who are standing against gender discrimination, sexual assault, domestic violence, and all human rights violation women experience and endure, as one is too many. Thank you for being here, and happy International Women's Day.
The fabulous Ella Amani. Let's give her a round of applause. And also to Ms. Arianas and all the amazing speakers today. I hope you already had a chance to visit the wonderful gallery here that has been curated by Mrs. Shala Seper Bibi. She is one of the members of the ICWIN Steering Committee and a talented artist in her own right. Contact information for the featured artists is in your program, but to thank them, we're going to ask them to join me on stage right now. Please, let's welcome Miss Shala Bibi, Nora Gabai, Mojde Qasemzadeh, Shahla Karami, Farnaz Mir Aferin, Mojan Mozafari, and last but certainly not least, Fahime Shamsapur. What a lovely group of amazing artists. So honored to have you all here. Thank you so much. Thank you. International Women's Day and ICWIN are very dear to my heart for so many reasons. It's been an incredible year for women's rights, and I'm so inspired by Elohe, Sudi, Miss Arianas, Dr. Castravi, and all the other amazing speakers and artists in attendance. My biggest inspiration was my grandmother, suffragist, poet, and educator Ashraf Mishkati. She went on to participate as a strong representative of female independence in a major historical celebration in Tehran, which was Iranian Women's Liberation Day on January 8, 1936. This day was known as 17-Day May, a ceremony where Reza Shah officially banned the chador and veil. This was a huge turning point in Iran for women's rights. Here's a quote of my grandmother's from that momentous day. "Freedom is like sunshine that should shower upon Iranian women and rain on all women around the world. Our first step is to have unity with which we can progress on the path to prosperity." More info about her at ashrafmeshkati.com. She would have been so proud of all of you today had she still been alive, but it's truly, truly my honor to be here, and I just feel such a great energy with such powerful, amazing women and all the supportive men in the audience. I tip my hat to all of you. Thank you so much. Our next speaker is going to tell us about walking in Hadaf, justice advocacy and building community. Dr. Niaz Kastravi is a national expert and advocate on criminal justice, social justice, and racial justice. She is the founder and director of Avalon Institute for Applied Research, a research, advocacy, and training institute. It is our great honor to have her here with us. Please give her a very warm welcome, Dr. Niaz Kastravi.
Hi, everyone. Talk about adjusting the microphone. I have to adjust the podium. First of all, I just also want to thank you for having me. Elohe John, ICWIN. It's really an honor to be here with you today to share my experience and my journey and hopefully inspire some of you to follow your heart and do the same. This is all the information you know. When it came to choosing a title for the talk, I was speaking with Elohe Jun, and she asked me to share with you my experience in the justice advocacy space, how I stumbled into this work and really discovered myself in it, and how really it's been about being intentional about the work that I do. And the Farsi word hadaf came to mind. So the title of the talk is Walking in Hadaf, which is finding your own purpose. And I want to share with you my purpose and how I found it. And like I said, hopefully inspire you to continue walking in your own path. And so when I looked up the word hadaf, or purpose, these are some of the definitions that came up, and just wanted to share that with you. We're going to go through a journey of how I ended up here, but I currently run an institute called Avalon, and we do research and advocacy around justice issues, and we train young advocates and young scholars to become active in the advocacy space. We work a lot on criminal justice issues and youth justice issues with nonprofits and philanthropists to really support issues such as police accountability and reducing mass incarceration and racial equity. So this is who I am. This is the premise of how I ended up here will become clear in a second. This is me. I want to start with way back when in Iran. I was a little girl. I think I was maybe about 5 when the revolution happened. And these are photos of my childhood and some of the memories that I have. This is my 3rd grade class, and that was my favorite teacher. And we had these conversations about compulsory hijab. And it was really confusing to me as a child because I felt like I lost the freedom to choose. And I think probably that's one of the earliest experiences I have of sort of unfairness and being limited that really helped propel sort of my exploration into this space. Some of the other more traumatic memories I have from my childhood is experiencing the revolution and the war. And we can find many images of the Iran-Iraq war, but what prompted my family and I to, and really my parents who are here in the audience, and I want to thank them for, giving me the opportunity to be here. When this started happening, when the war started hitting close to home and the bombs were starting to arrive in Tehran, we immigrated to the U.S., and this is us. This was in '84, and we came with hopes and dreams of really finding a society and a community that would provide us opportunities, that would really be the foundation of a life that's more rooted in taking advantage of a fair society and a community that was rooted in justice, right? So I think as immigrants, we all moved to this country with some of those expectations, particularly for us who come from experiences of having been oppressed or our rights taken away. So this is how we saw ourselves, this cute little family, moving to the U.S. to pursue their life and begin a new chapter. And we soon realized that this is how they saw us. This is a photo from right after the hostage crisis. I think it was probably about '79 that this photo was taken, where demonstrations swept across the country with anti-Iranian sentiment, wanting us all to be deported, basically, which rings true even now today when you think about things like the travel ban, right? So this is how they saw us, and if you can read there, it says, "Deport all Iranians," and underneath it says, "Get the hell out of my country." So you come face to face with these contradictions, I think, as immigrants, if you're somewhat socially aware, that you didn't expect when you come to the States. And it was an experience of both, I think, certain incidents of individual discrimination, but really as we grew up, decades of seeing policies implemented that were discriminatory at their root, right? There was, after 9/11, I was just talking to somebody, we've all kind of every day, there's something crazy going on, and especially now with kind of the current political climate, it's very reminiscent of what happened after 9/11, where, we saw them round up our communities and ask folks to come in and register with the INS and treat them as if they were, culprits in the war against terrorism, right? And so we experienced many decades of that, both I think individually as community members, but also that's how we were treated by the policies that were enacted in this country. And so I was a little taken aback. I think for several years I was very confused, right? Because what I expected wasn't really lining up with the experiences that I had in this country. And I think I'll pause there before I move on. Sometimes when I talk about this, it's not to say that I'm not grateful for the life that I have here, for the opportunities that I have had here to become who I am and accomplish the things I've accomplished, right? But I also have the freedom to criticize what I don't think is right and fair and try to make it better, right? So that's the space from which this conversation today and all of my work is coming from. So, experiencing all this confusion, and then I studied criminal justice. I went to UC Irvine around the corner, and that's me when I got my doctoral degree. And I learned that the discrimination that we're experiencing is prevalent systemically in many systems of American society, whether it's healthcare, whether it's employment, whether it's the justice system, whether it's the economy. These systemic forms of discrimination are there and have been there historically, and we need to address them. So I began to understand and kind of figure out what was confusing me, came from a history and things that have been experienced by many people, and we still continue to experience them. So my path down studying criminal justice and some of the things that were really jolting to me as I started to discover this field and the justice system is I learned that the U.S. is the world's #1 incarcerator. We have more people in prison in this country than anywhere in the world. In fact, we have 5% of the world's population, but 25% of the world's prisoners are here in the U.S., right? We have nearly 2.3 million people behind bars, and 2/3 of them are people of color, 40% African American. And that's just to rebut some of the argument against, maybe they commit more crimes. Data has shown that people of color don't commit more crimes. We don't do more drugs. Immigrants aren't creating more crime problem than other people in America, but there's this thing called racial profiling, right? It's basically discrimination by law enforcement and people in power to enforce sort of their biased beliefs, right? So people of color are targeted by law enforcement more than others, right? So we're targeted by law enforcement. That means we're funneled into the system more. Once people of color, particularly African Americans, are involved with the system, they're more likely to be sentenced and charged harsher. They're more likely to receive the death penalty, and on and on and on. So I began to see, even though the system promises equality and says the laws are supposed to apply to everyone equally, they're not. Right? They're enforced by people who are in power, who are able to enforce their own biases. So yes, maybe when we go to court, there's the same law, but the inequalities that we bring with us, whether it's poverty or financial inequality or racial discrimination or biased beliefs, then impact the system of equal laws, which then perpetuate more inequality. So I began to understand this system and studying the history of where the criminal justice system came from, right? It came from post-slavery and the slave patrols that were funneling African Americans and black people into the system. Our system emerges from Jim Crow laws and enforcing laws that said, black people can't be in the same space, right, in the same buses, drink from the same drinking fountain as white people, right? So this is the basis of and foundation of many of our systems in America, and we haven't really addressed the inequality that has caused for generations, because then what I also learned is that our system has a generational impact. If someone gets involved with the system, then they are more likely to have their children involved with the system. It has a financial impact. Your family loses a certain financial footing. When you come out of the system after having, quote unquote, paid your dues to society, you are, less likely to be able to easily find a job, right? You can't vote in many states. And these things impact generations and families. So I began to understand the system of inequality that's very complicated, that's rooted in American history. Yeah, and this is what I was talking about in terms of understanding it as a systemic issue and looking at, for example, how children of color, for example, are punished differently in the school system, and they're referred for the same sort of misbehavior as other kids to the juvenile justice system, which then causes them to kind of have system involvement or makes them more likely to have system involvement. And so began to understand the systemic and institutional racism that is a part of this country. And this quote really always sits well with me in terms of why I care so much. People ask me, why do I care so much? And this is, of course, a quote by Malcolm X that says, "I have no mercy or compassion in me for a society that will crush people and then penalize them for not being able to stand up under the weight." So that's really how I saw marginalized communities and minority communities in America, is that there's a system that crushes us and then expects us to behave and follow the rules and be like everyone else. It just doesn't work that way. So I decided to channel some of this learning and this passion into the work I did, and I went on to work for Amnesty International, I Stop Prison Rape, an organization that worked on ending sexual abuse behind bars, Anti-Recidivism Coalition, and the NAACP. And some of the things that I'm proud of through that journey, me, little immigrant Niaz, who came to America with stars in her eyes and discovered sort of the layeredness of this country, some of the things I'm proud of, I was able to write 2 reports on racial profiling. We were able to eliminate the death penalty in the state of Maryland. We freed, thank you. We freed a man who was sentenced unjustly to a life sentence in Georgia. We were able to pass anti-racial profiling laws in the state of New York. These are some of the things that I think that, though it took decades, it made me realize that I also live in a country where I can be part of that change. There may be things that are broken and unfair, but I also have the ability and the power to do something about it. And when I talk about my journey with my family or friends or in gatherings like this, people come up to me and say, we're so grateful that you've devoted your life to this. And I'm here to tell you that you don't have to devote your entire life to this, but choose something that inspires you. There are so many issues out there that we can work on, and it's your journey to figure out what really speaks to you. To me, it was the injustices in the criminal justice system. There is climate change that you can work on. There's education stuff. There's health inequities, economic disparities that you can work on. There is what we'll talk about today, civic engagement and getting the vote out and empowering to people to determine their political leaders and therefore their future. So find what speaks to you and follow that. It's really easy in this climate that we live in to lose hope. I have this conversation with my sister who's helping raise 2 little boys in this country, and she says, Niaz, I'm at a point that you turn on the news every day and you're just struck by another crazy thing happening, and I've just lost hope. I've lost hope in people. I've lost hope in our ability to control anything anymore. And I tell her that for me, I'm entrenched in these issues. And you would think that someone like this would be the first person to lose hope because it's just coming at us every day. But I've surrounded myself with people who are fighting for change, and that gives me hope. So the circles and the people that you hang out with, what you get involved, will be kind of the impetus for you to discover what your calling is and not lose hope, especially in this political climate that we live in that tries to ban our people from entering the country, where there's a school shooting. Every so often we turn on the TV and it seems to be a regular occurrence in this country, where it's becoming easier and easier by the day to buy assault rifles. Although we are seeing a lot of good work coming from young people in Florida. We have our work cut out for us, but we shouldn't lose hope. And I know this is a mixed and diverse crowd, but I'm gonna take a few minutes and just talk to the Iranian community that has nurtured me and that I care for so much. People always say, why should we care? And we have to realize that we are immigrants in this country and we are people of color. I know that there's a lot of dialogue about whether the government categorizes us as white. The reality is that our experiences in this country are as immigrants and as people of color. Talk to your children and the experiences they have when they go to school. And so recognizing who we are and embracing it, I think, is the first step. We are numerous. We have a lot of power. I think some of our panelists will talk to you about the importance of recognizing the power that we have in this country, right? But yet the social and political climate particularly impacts us. Every time there's something going on with Iran, there is a law that discriminates against us, right? So we have to use that political power base that we have to protect ourselves from that, and not just respond every time that the government wants to pass another policy that impacts us. I think that we also must realize that we are here because we are allowed to be here and enjoy the rights that we enjoy because other people paved the way for us. Other people are still in the front lines, and some of us are there, right? A lot of people in this room, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir because I've seen you at some of these gatherings. But there are people who are fighting for our right to be here, right? We stand on the shoulders of people who fought in the civil rights movement, the indigenous people who are still fighting for the freedom that was taken from them, but they are still here and they're showing us the path of how we cannot be erased, right? So really recognizing that. And I think there's a lot of things we can do. The most powerful things, the most powerful campaigns that I've been a part of have been in allyship with diverse communities of color. One of the things that I see, and I think it's something to be proud of, often coming out of a lot of our organization, a lot of our discussions, is that Iranian Americans are the most educated, are amongst the most well-established and financially well-off immigrant communities. I think that's all good. We should be proud of some of the things we've been able to accomplish. But I think that also sets us up to be in this kind of mind frame of we're the model minority, as if for someone who may not be as well educated or as accomplished or have as much kind of financial footing, it's okay for governments and our lawmakers to take away their rights, right? That's how that sounds, I think, to some of our partners out there. And I think it could be something that prevents that bridge building that's really necessary for us to be a part of the larger movement for justice. So I think that's something that we can do as a community that really will help us and kind of set the tone for future generations to also continue getting involved in these fights. I've worked on a lot of cases. One of the issues I've worked on is police brutality and police shootings of unarmed men. These are a handful of some of the high-profile cases of law enforcement shooting and killing unarmed, innocent civilians. And there's thousands. You know, at some point you start, there was a time, especially where there was no cameras, where we could keep track, but there's literally thousands of people who experience this. And at the end, you will see two Iranian faces. So very recently, I started working with the family of Shayan Mazrui and the family of Bijan Qaisar. Shayan Mazrui was stabbed to death by a known white supremacist in Orange County 2 years ago. Bijan Qaisar was shot by Park Police in Virginia over 100 days ago, and they are still fighting for justice, and they don't know who shot him. The identity of the officers haven't been revealed, and we are still fighting for justice for Shayan. His murderer is going to trial next month. And I've been spending a lot of time with these families, and it made me realize in a real tangible way that this is at our doorstep, right? We can't ignore it anymore. We can't hide behind the fact that our community is educated and we're to a great extent united. Look at, we show up for each other in these events, but we gotta show up for each other when stuff like this happens. And we gotta build those bridges with communities who have been fighting these battles for hundreds of years. And I'm gonna ask you to join me and the Mazrui family on March 13th outside of the Superior Court in Orange County. Everyone take out your phones and take a picture of this because I want you to have this information. And we're demanding justice for Shayan, and we're going to stand with his family because that could have easily been my cousin, my friends, your sons and your brothers and your nephews and your uncles. And these families didn't see this coming. When Bijan Qaisar was shot, because of the work I had done, I reached out to the NAACP and I reached out to Amnesty International and I said, this has happened to a member of my community and I need your help. And they said, you have whatever you need. We trust you. I was touched. But they both issued statements. They're both calling for justice and using their political weight to try and move those cases forward. But it also made me realize that I showed up for these communities and these organizations. And so when I needed it because somebody in our community was being impacted, they showed up for us. And they showed up because they knew me. Now imagine if all of us had some of those contacts. And when something bad happened, we could rely on our allies because we were true allies and we'd shown up for them, not just because it was something that impacted people that we know or people that look or pray or eat like us, right? We showed up for them because it was the right thing to do. So that was a huge lesson that I learned and I knew, but to feel it and be in the middle of it and see these organizations and these wonderful allies show up was really touching. So my call to action isn't just around showing up and responding to these negative, oppression moments by the state, right? It's really, I have two quotes by two people that are really beloved by me and most of us, right? And one is a Rumi quote. Do you know what you are? You are an You are a manuscript of a divine letter. You are a mirror reflecting a noble face. This universe is not outside of you. Look inside yourself. Everything that you want, you are already that. And so take this to heart as you think about what you heard here today, the purpose of our gathering here, and what you'll hear from the other panelists, and recognize that these problems that we see are not insurmountable. We have the answers within us. And this is my beloved Baldwin. Freedom is not something that anybody can be given. Freedom is something people take, and people are as free as they want to be. Most of us came to this country expecting that freedom would be given to us, not recognizing that it is for us to take that freedom. So I hope you take some time and you think about these words. I hope that my story was helpful in figuring out your path. And I'm here if you want to talk further. And I thank you for having me.
Taller than I thought. Thank you so much, Dr. Niaz Kasravi. Thank you so much. Truly an inspiration to us all. Next is our panel discussion, Power to the Polls. This panel will be moderated by Mrs. Hania Jodat Barnes, who is an entrepreneur, philanthropist, and a writer. She is working with the Women's March Los Angeles Foundation as Director of Partnerships to engage and invite community partners with a focus on diversity and inclusivity. Let's welcome her to the stage. Thank you so much, Ms. Hania Jodat Barnes. Thank you. As I mentioned the names of the panelists, I ask that they join us on the stage as well. We have Ms. Mona Galbi, volunteer at Next Gen America. Mrs. Farah Khan, running for Irvine City Council. Mrs. Rachel Payne, running for Congress in District 45. Welcome, welcome. You know, I'm a native Washingtonian, and I see more Congress people here than I do back home, so this is really impressive to me. Okay, and last but not least, Mr. Kia Hamidonchi.
I'm running in 48, not 45. 45? No, 48.
Running for Congress in District 45. Let's give a warm welcome to all these luminaries. Thank you so much.
Just to make a quick correction, Rachel is actually running for District 48. So it is an absolute honor to be here. How do you follow up after Nia's presentation? But I guess that pays an homage to how important it is to get active in our communities. And it's an honor to be amongst you all, change makers and people who influence. So it is my honor to be here. But I'd like to start off with just kind of asking the panel what their process in getting active has been, and what motivated you to take position in what you do now to run for office. So we'll start with you. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Rachel, and the process of running for Congress was actually very organic, and it took a while for me to arrive at the point where I realized that the place where I could have the greatest impact in my community was at that level. I actually started in the resistance. I was, attending as many rallies and protests as I could, signing petitions, donating funds. I even helped set up a new Democratic club in what was traditionally a very conservative area, and it still wasn't enough. And I got to that point where I realized it's upon all of us to do everything in our full capacity to make a difference because so many people are under attack. And that's when I finally realized the very best thing I could do is replace Dana Rohrabacher in the 48th.
For me, it was the travel ban. I was working in Congress for a senator at the time, and I can remember the night the travel ban was issued. I can remember talking to my mother that night, talking to my father that night, thinking that had that travel ban been in place, they would not have been able to come to this country. When they've contributed so much to this country, they've done so much for Orange County. You think of all the people in this room who are Iranian, the idea that the President of the United States would say, you can't come to this country because you're Iranian, has nothing to do with doctor, lawyer, engineer, Muslim, Jewish, Zoroastrian, whatever. He would have said, you're not good enough just for the sheer fact that you're Iranian. And to me, that was a demonstration of what kind of president this was going to be, what kind of administration this was going to be, and why it's so critical that we do whatever we can to oppose it. But also the idea that as Iranian Americans, we are one of the most successful minority groups of period, or immigrant groups, and we have absolutely no political representation at the federal level. The idea that we've never had a member of Congress, that's something that we need to change, and that's what I want to try to do.
And Farah. Yeah.
So for me, basically, I started out volunteering for different campaigns locally. When my kids were little, they would be in strollers as I walked and knocked on doors and made phone calls, held events for other people. But looking at our city in Irvine, where almost 50% of the population is a diverse community of immigrants, we have no representation on our city council. And then we look at our city council members, and there are no representation of people with families, with young children, when almost 80% of our population is young families. And so for me, it became a time where, as I was helping others get elected, every time that I thought that I might step up, I was told it wasn't my time, that I needed to wait my turn. And it wasn't until a few strong women came up to me and said, your time is when you make it. You don't let other people tell you when it's your time. And so in 2016, I put my name on the ballot and I ran. And as someone with no name recognition, out of 11 candidates came in fourth. And so I'm going to run again in 2018 for the win.
And just so you know, Mona is our youngest, the youngest member of our panel, so she is not running for office yet, but is that...
So I think I first got inspired to get involved politically when I realized that I don't necessarily need to be in a place of power to have an impact. I think a pretty major misconception is that you need to be an elected official to be effective in your community. And I realized that true power comes in inspiring people on your college campus, high school campus, your friends, your family, and giving them the tools to get involved in their community is really where you can be effective. And I mean, so much of the older generation always tells younger kids that they don't have a place in the political process, to wait their turn, that it isn't, leave it to the adults. And then I think finally I just realized that this isn't about them. This isn't about their preconceived notions of college kids. It's about the people whose healthcare is being threatened, the people who run the risk of getting thrown out of this country, or those who go hungry because they can't afford a meal. You know, we're doing this for them. So I was inspired to do what I could to help those people.
This next question is for Rachel, Kia, and Farah. What differences as a candidate are you hoping to make?
I've been fighting for issues around social justice for about 25 years. I've also been a tech executive for about 20 years, and I've worked as an entrepreneur, a woman entrepreneur. So I have experienced firsthand many of the issues that affect a number of people, whether it's issues around equal pay for equal work, the Me Too movement, issues around your reproductive freedom and fighting for your rights as women, or, you know, in the workplace, really understanding how we can make the corporate environment more accommodating for families and paid family leave. And so there are a lot of issues where, because of firsthand experience, because I've been working on these issues from multiple angles for a long time, I think I have a lot of experience to draw from. I've also served on the world's largest NGO, which is actually based out of Bangladesh, called BRAC, BRAC, and it's, there's a lot of leaders in that organization who understand economic empowerment in a global context. So I'm very excited about the difference that we can make in our communities by helping more people participate in the economy in an inclusive way.
Yeah, no, so I tell everyone the reason I'm running for Congress is I want to make sure each and every American is treated with the respect and dignity that they deserve. Unfortunately, with this president, that doesn't happen at all. But look, it's also important that we have more diversity in Congress. Congress is filled with way too many old white men who have names like Joe Smith. And people need to see that whether it's Iranian American or something else, just because your name is different doesn't mean you can't be a member of Congress. It doesn't mean that you're not American. We have Americans come in all kinds of shapes and sizes and names, and people need to see that. The second thing is we need younger voices in Congress. You see these kids in Florida, they're 14, they're 15, and they're the first people who have really gotten the NRA to actually do some back down.
That's true. Yep.
And they have a lot more courage than all these politicians in Washington who literally take donation after donation from the NRA, and after every time there's a school shooting, they say, nope, don't do anything about it, we can't rush to judgment. And the third thing is, look, we need that young, progressive vision for where we want to take this future of this country. Our politics are deeply broken. Donald Trump is the symptom, he is not the cause of our problems. And if you impeach him tomorrow, we would still have deep, deep divisions in this country. And what we need is new, young, progressive voices for what we want the future of America to be, how we want the world to see this country, because we don't want it to be Donald Trump.
Simple as that, right? Plain and simple. Sarah, your take.
So for me, at the local level, it's very important that we are building communities that are going to thrive. And so when we don't have a representation that is bringing people together, we need to change that. And for me, my background comes from 8 years of being a regulatory affairs manager for a major biotech company, 13 years of being a small business owner, and currently 3 years being the executive director of a nonprofit. So these are all the components that we really need experience in order to run a good, strong city. And Irvine, on face value, it looks like it's a great city. It's one of the safest cities. It's got great schools. But when you find out that every year our Title I student population is increasing, that people are barely surviving because they're paying their mortgage and nothing else, that we actually have a thrift shop in Irvine that provides school clothing to children this is 1,000 children that they're providing school clothing to. There's an underlying problem that no one is talking about. And it's not okay to just cover that up and say, hey, look what a great city we are. We need to tackle the issues and make sure we're talking about them today so that we don't have this as a continuing problem for the future. And that's really what I look for when I look for leadership. I look for someone that's going to be able to talk about the tough things that aren't always pleasant to talk about, but then be able to come up with solutions and take care of the folks that are desperately needing help. And if you can't do that much, then you're not a public servant. And that's really what I intend to be.
Thank you, Farah. So to touch upon some of the issues that were just brought up as far as women's issues, the wage and achievement gap, sexual harassment, the CEDAWERA, and the Me Too movement, what are your 3 top issues in your platform, and how do you plan on tackling those in short? It could get long, so.
So coming from the technology industry, which is not lacking in men, I understand what it's like to be in an environment where you're paid less for the work you do. And I think for many women, it's disrespectful to know that you're putting in long hours and the hard work and you're still being paid less. And of course, women of color, it's significantly less, and we're talking, almost half. And so in that respect, not only would it be great for families, for women to finally be paid equal to men for the same work, but importantly, it's good for the economy. So we're actually talking about between a 1% and 3% growth in the GDP on an annual basis just by righting this wrong. And that would do wonders for stimulating the economy and also enabling more people to work. So equal pay is a very clear platform that I plan to advocate for in really concrete ways. In addition, we need enforceable legislation to end harassment and discrimination in the workplace. We do have an environment where some companies comply, they have a code of ethics, but simple things like ending forced arbitration agreements and NDAs that cover sexual harassment would do wonders for the ability for women to speak up and have their voice be heard and to have justice. So there's a whole slate of issues that I'm actually putting together to advance women's priorities as legislative priorities, because at the end of the day, it helps everyone.
That's true. Yeah, that's very true.
Look, I think the idea that in the United States in 2018 a woman makes 73 cents for every dollar a man makes is absolutely ridiculous. And it's really, really important that we close that pay disparity. There's a lot of ways we can do it. I mean, one of the key things is we need to make sure that there's real paid family leave and paid sick leave. The idea that in this we are the only developed nation in the entire world who doesn't mandate these things when someone has a child is absolutely ridiculous. The other thing is it's really, really critical is pay transparency. You know, a lot of times a woman is getting paid less than a man and doesn't actually even know it. And one of the things we need to do is make sure we have that data so that when someone is being discriminated against because they're a woman, we're able to know that that's the case. And the final piece is making sure that when women are being discriminated against and being paid less because of the fact they're a woman, that they have the tools to go after those employers and make them do the right thing. The second issue I would say is when it comes to women's reproductive rights. The idea that these politicians in Washington want to tell women what they should do with their bodies is absolutely ridiculous. Or the idea that you should be charged more for your health insurance because you're a woman is absolutely ridiculous. The fact that birth control isn't free is absolutely ridiculous. And these are all things that we have to fix. And the third piece is, look, ending sexual harassment in Congress where it's way too prevalent, in the workplace where it's way too prevalent, but in our society. And that's a really key thing we need to do going forward.
So for me, it's when we're looking at local municipalities, we're looking at making sure that people that we're hiring are being paid an equal wage. So that means when we're reviewing our budget, when we're hiring folks, we're making sure that the female worker gets the same pay as the male worker depending on the job that we're offering. And that can be done. And it's not done on a regular basis. Secondly, it's the sexual harassment issue. It happens everywhere. But we need to be making sure that as elected officials, we are doing whatever we can. And one of the main goals to target sexual harassment in the workplace is to hire more women, get more women in management positions. There are so many positions in City Hall and in management, you'll see the majority are held by men. Women are just as qualified, and we need to open those doors for each other to make sure that there is equality in the workplace.
Yes, absolutely. Well said, well said.
And finally, speaking on CEDAW, I know in our city, I was there when CEDAW, a resolution for CEDAW was introduced in Irvine and was voted down. That was unacceptable to me. And so once elected, that will be my priority to make sure that resolution is passed.
So then let's talk about gender equality and what that means to each and every single one of you. And how do you see that our social and collective understanding changed since the 60s and the 70s when you talk about, the feminist movement back then, now to an age where we're here again and we're kind of stepping back a little bit. So let's touch upon that for our audience.
The big shift in the feminist movement over that period of time is the realization today of intersectionality and the fact that things are interconnected. So when we talk about gender justice, we cannot mistakenly ignore economic justice. Because if you look at the world, poverty is gendered. 90% of the world's poor are women. So economic justice is gender justice, is reproductive justice. And these are all related. And that's the big shift, because I think the feminist movement before, early on, left out important populations, left out important perspectives. And we're at a point in time right now as a society where we need to embrace our diversity. Inclusivity is what will actually help drive better outcomes, better decision making. Having more people around the table with more perspectives is what's actually going to get to better policy making. And as the co-founder of a think tank called Fem Inc., we've also done research looking at that intersection of how the media represents women, how technology is built by men, where does bias get introduced into the system, and how do we proactively address bias in a way that doesn't just perpetuate and accelerate what is already very biased messaging or representation in our culture.
So the other key point, that economic point I think is really key. You look at issues like domestic violence, you look at issues like reproductive rights. How often is there a time when a woman has to make a decision that they don't want to or because of for an economic reason? And that's why it's so important that we do take steps to make sure economics are not a part of that discussion. But bigger picture-wise, there are far too our society is run by far too many men. Whether it's the courts, whether it's Congress, whether it's in business, and whether it's the Donald Trump in the White House. We came so close to electing the first female president of the United States in 2016. And in fact, a majority of them, she won the popular vote even. And what was most unfortunate about it is that Donald Trump won a campaign that was based so much on sexism and tore her down based on the fact that she was a woman. And I think that's why the most critical next step is we need to have more women elected to office at the local level, at the state level, and in Congress. And I think that one of the best things that happened, the key thing to what happened with Donald Trump has been the response with people running. And everyone says this is going to be the year of the woman. And one of the things we saw was in 1992, after the Clarence Thomas stuff in the Supreme Court, you saw unprecedented waves of women running and getting elected. But what we didn't see after that was that process continuing. That year I think still has the record for the most women getting elected to Congress in any particular year, which is crazy that 1992. We've come so far, 2018. My hope is that in 2018 we set the new record, but at the same time, we shouldn't have to wait 30 years for the next record to come.
So I think what we need to do is we need to shift what we're saying. We talk about equality for women, and what we need to start talking about is equity. And the difference between the two is basically equality is you make everything the same for everyone. And that has worked in the past, but now in this day and age, we need equity. We need to be able to provide education, training, mentorship for women to bring them to the level that they have not been able to get to before. That means giving them the playing field that is fair so that they have the same chances of succeeding as men. And so what I urge people as we're moving forward is, there's one thing to have gender equality, but there's a whole other thing to say that we have gender equity. And that's what we need to work towards. We need to work towards equity because the gap is there. We know it's there. But the way to fix it is to make sure that there's equity for all of us. And that includes women of color. That includes men of color. It means making sure that all of us are doing what we need to do to be able to say that, yes, we have a fair chance of succeeding. Because if we don't, then we're going to be in the same cycle over and over again.
You asked, what does gender equality mean to each of us? And I think a really important thing in society right now is that it means the same thing to all of us. Gender equality shouldn't be up for interpretation. It's equality among all genders. And I wasn't alive during the 60s and 70s, so I can't give an accurate depiction of how things have changed since then. But I think today's society does a better job at recognizing a lot of the inequalities in education and in the workplace and in everything, really. And I think, other panelists have touched on this too. It's really important to recognize the intersectional feminism that we see nowadays. I mean, you see a white woman being penalized in the workplace for her gender, whereas you see a Persian woman or a black woman being penalized for her race and gender. And I think today's society needs to recognize that, because if we continue to overlook these issues, we never will gain the true equality that everybody deserves.
Absolutely.
And
And so what we've seen since the election of Donald Trump, which is something that we're continuing to touch upon, which is a very important issue, we've seen a great deal of mobilization from people, women and especially marginalized communities and people of color. And what we would love to know is that what message you have for those people and how would you like for them to get involved, because it is detrimental to our future that we do have a voice in the system and especially with the political process. So
I'm optimistic about the surge in mobilization and the activation of people who are previously politically uninvolved. That's extremely encouraging. Because we know that the best way to give up power is to believe you don't have any. And we all have power. And we can come to the table from whatever place in life we are in to step forward and to stand in our power. And I think women in particular have to do this now. Their stakes are too high. We just saw, as Kia mentioned, we went from around 4,000 women running for public office to 34,000. It's a record we've never seen. But it's not enough to run. We need to vote for women. We need to fund women. And we also need to make sure that we have a greater diversity of voices being heard. So I would say it's more critical than ever to not let these seeming divisions divide us, and instead to remember what we have in common, where we are aligned, and to remember that every one of us has power in our respective spheres, and that together we can stand stronger.
absolutely.
So the biggest thing to me is it's important. You got to be a part of the process. You look at the Iranian American community; they have generally not been a part of the political process. You know, in Iran, 90% of Iranians turn out for elections that matter far less than ours. In the United States, the voter turnout rate amongst Iranian Americans is about 30%. What you see is we don't turn out, we don't register, we don't get to the polls, and as a result, we're marginalized by our political system. You know, the President of the United States can get up there and say, if you're Iranian, you can't come to America, and we don't have anyone there to stand for us. You know, the President of the United States can get up there and say, this Iran deal, no worries, let's throw it out the window, war with Iran, let's go, and we don't have anyone to stand up and do something about it. You know, and it's about turning up, knocking on doors, registering to vote, supporting candidates you believe in, but it's also about being more sophisticated about how do we go about actually achieving political power in this country. You look at the Iranian American community, there are a lot of different communities that you can look to. You look at the Cubans, for instance. That's another country who has historically had a very tenuous relationship with the United States, yet they're one of the most powerful lobbies in the state of Florida and in our politics. Or you look at the Armenian community, a very, very small community, but one that punches way above its political weight. And the question is, why as Iranian Americans are we failing to do that? And why do we not have people to advocate for us in Congress and the federal government for the issues that we care about? Because right now, we simply just don't have a seat at the table. And when you don't have a seat at the table, you're on the menu.
I'm adopting that term. Thank you. That should be a quote.
It is a quote.
It is. Is it? Oh, great.
It's a woman.
Was it? I'm late to the party apparently. But.
All right, so again, the most important thing that any community can do is to get behind candidates that they believe in. And that the only way to do that is, first, people say funding, and they're always like, well, why do I have to give money? Well, you have to realize that when you're running a campaign, you have to reach out to voters. You have to make sure that they're getting your mailer, that they're getting your phone call, that they're getting their door knocked, and that costs a lot of money. And so the money that candidates are raising is to reach out to voters so that those voters can in turn vote for them. But the communities can help by spreading the word. You can host events for candidates in your local areas. You can volunteer. And again, you can be that voice that tells others, hey, I know this person. I'm excited about this person running. I want you to tell your friends and family too. It's very important for us to start talking about elections. We've become very comfortable thinking that things are just going to be okay day in and day out, but it's a very good year because now everyone is uncomfortable, and there's no better time to take action than being uncomfortable. And we shouldn't be uncomfortable. And how do we change from being uncomfortable to getting back to a comfort state? Is by becoming active. It's by becoming a person that is going to acknowledge that there's something wrong and I am the one that's going to make that change, not depending on someone else to make the change. And each of us in here are able to make that change. And it takes just one effort, whether it's volunteering, whether it's by hosting an event, whether it's by actually going out, registering, and voting.
Yeah.
These are ways that we can bring change. And for our communities, especially immigrant communities, we need to step it up. We've been comfortable and I would say a little bit lazy for far too long. And we need to make sure that we are the active community that we can be. Our potential is there, we just need to show it now.
I would say that young people need to get involved. It's so inspiring to see people of color and women getting elected and running for office, but young people are still getting left behind, and we need those voices representing our rights and our demands. Like we see in Parkland, they can be effective, but too many of us don't put our faith or our trust in the younger generation, so we're afraid to run because we know we won't get elected or we won't garner the votes of the older generation. To put it in perspective, the framers of the Constitution made the constitutional age for the president 35 years old, and young Democrats of America are defined as anybody up into the age of 36. So in theory, a young Democrat could be elected to the office of the presidency, but as a country, we're just not there yet. Our collective societal culture isn't there yet, but I think we're getting there. We're getting there, but we need to put more work in inspiring the youth that they have the power and that they can vote, and their vote means something, because our country just can't afford the disinvolvement of the youth anymore.
And we are out of time, so I would love to, in one sentence, for each one of you to let us tell us what we should take away from this conversation today. One sentence.
I believe as a country that we should support everyone's fullest potential, and those are the types of policies that we need to advocate for.
I would tell every single person in this room needs to register to vote. They need to vote this June, and they need to vote this November to vote in candidates who stand for what they believe in.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, and speaking from Shirley Chisholm, if they don't give you a seat at the table, you bring a folding chair.
Yep. Absolutely.
Vote. Go out and vote this June and in November.
And we would like to thank each and every one of you for your activism and for everything that you do for the community. And please, please, if you are not registered to vote, we actually do have a representation called Farsi Voters today who will be asking for people to register. Let us come together. Let us take our power to the poll. Unfortunately, we don't have time for questions, but each one of the lovely representatives and panels participants will stay to chat, to discuss issues further. It is an honor to be here, and I look forward to collaborating with my community. So, thank you.
Thank you. Wow, what an amazing panel. Many thanks to our amazing moderator, Mrs. Hania Jodat Barnes, and all our amazing panelists. I love that we covered the political spectrum as well. Thank you so much. And if it hasn't been mentioned before, I'd like to mention these quotes. We must organize, challenge, and resist. Fabulous Representative Maxine Waters said that quote. And not to get political, here's another good one. Our job is to stand up, fight back, and get involved. And that was by the amazing Bernie Sanders, Senator Sanders. I could go on, but I don't want to get political. Did I say it would be engaging and educating? In the words of Maya Angelou, each time a woman stands up for herself, without knowing it possibly, without claiming it, she stands up for all women. At this time, we want to honor a woman that has stood up for all women, especially those subject to domestic violence. Miss Amani will tell us more about this incredible, incredible human being. Let's welcome her to the stage. Once again, the lovely Miss Elahe Amani.
It's with heavy heart for me that we want to pay tribute to someone that I know for 34 years, that she participated every year in every activity related to gender issues in Iranian community and abroad. She was an activist working for gender equality, and professionally she was a therapist with her office in Irvine. We lost her in her fight to cancer, and we want to pay tribute to the wonderful life that she lived in for peace, justice, and gender equality. Her name is Manijeh Berahmandi, and last week it was her memorial and burial, and we thought that we should carve a few minutes from this meeting and pay our respect to the life that she lived in. Thank you.
در باد تو بیا تو دلم نکرده فریاد گل شب بودی که شبو نمیده کی گل شبو رو از شاخه چیده گوشه آسمون پر رنگین کمون من مثل تاریکی تو مثل مهتاب اگه باد از سر زلف تو نگذره من میرم گم میشم تو جنگل گلدون من ماه ایوون من از تو تنها شدم چو ماهی از آب گل هر آرزو رفته از رنگ و بو من شدم رودخونه دلم یه مرداب آسمون ابری میشه اما گل خورشید رو شاخه های بید دلش میره در مهتابی میشه اما گل مهتاب از برکه های آب بالا نمیره تو که دست تکون میدی به ستاره جون میدی میشکافه گل از گل باد وقتی چشماتم میاد تو ستاره کم میاد میسوزه شقایق از دور گل گلدون من ماه ایوون من از تو تنها شدم چو ماهی از آب گل هر آرزو رفته از رنگ و بو من شدم رودخونه دلم یه مرداب
What a lovely tribute to Mrs. Manijeh Berahmandi. May she rest in peace. Many thanks to Mrs. Amani and also to the lovely Pantia Zahari for her beautiful, beautiful, moving tribute. What an incredible voice from such a petite woman, too, petite young lady. As I mentioned this year, the UN is focused on girls and young women between the ages of 15 and 40. This next segment is a performance that tells us more about issues that impact this age group. This collaborative work is called Changing the World One Word at a Time. It has been scripted by two inspiring creative directors, Rachel, Kayla from Camp Real Stories, and it is performed by volunteer girls from the Trabuco Hills High School. We have Alina, Emitis, Kiana, and Tara June, and a future UN shining star, Shadi. Let's welcome these incredible performers to the stage, shall we? Thank you so much.
Refugees. Access to clean water is the #1 issue in refugee camps.
At home, I had a refrigerator filled with foods and drinks. Here, I wake up every morning at 4 a.m. so I can get enough water for my family before it runs out for the day. At home, I went to school and worked at a pizza shop in the mall. Here, I am not allowed to register in the local schools or get a work permit. At home, I had a room I shared with my sister. Here, I share a tent with my sister, mother, father, brother, and 2 other families. We were told it would be safer here. We wouldn't have to worry about the rockets and bombs, but we still worry. It's just about different things.
65.6 million people around the world have been forced from home. Among them are nearly 22.5 million refugees, over half of whom are under the age of 18. Bullying. 60% of middle school students say that they've been bullied.
I wish I could stand up for myself, and I wish that someone else would. I wish the faculty would do something, and I wish I wasn't misunderstood. I wish that words wouldn't hurt me, but they certainly do, and I wish kids wouldn't attack me on my way to school. I wish I didn't have to duck and cover to just make it to class, and I wish I didn't have a target on my ass. I wish my parents would listen when I say I need help, and I wish that I wasn't in need for psychological help. I wish that everyone would understand that words hurt no matter how big or small, and I wish that people would stop bullying once and for all.
160,000 students stay at home from school every day due to bullying. Reproductive rights. Teen pregnancy is at a record low for U.S. teens, and birth rates fell 9% for women aged 15 to 17 years, and 7% for women aged 18 to 19 years.
If being able to make our own decisions about our health, body, and sexual life is a basic human right, then why am I being belittled for fighting the good fight? I was told when I was young how to act and dress. Everything has changed, but I'm viewed the same. Sorry, not sorry, but I'm not the same little girl from your memory. I have the right to be anything I want to be. That's 100% fact, not fiction, and I say that with total conviction. I will not sit at a desk and forward your calls. I will not be a housewife to answer to your every beckoning call. Enough is enough. I've had it up to here with you all. It's my body and my right to do as I please. And if you don't agree, then that's fine, but I guarantee that you'll see me in the future living my dream, because it's my body and my right to do as I please.
U.S. teen pregnancy rate is substantially higher than in other Western industrialized nations, and racial, ethnic, and geographic disparities in teen birth rates persist. Defunding Planned Parenthood causes teen pregnancies to spike. Did you know?
Did you know child marriage is a global issue? If you think that child marriage doesn't exist in the U.S., think again.
Did you know, except Virginia, all states have exceptions to allow for child marriage under age of 16 with parent consent or court ruling?
Did you know 3 10-year-old girls and an 11-year-old boy were among the youngest to wed in the U.S. under legal loopholes in Tennessee?
Did you know children as young as 12 were granted marriage licenses in Alaska, Louisiana, and South Carolina, while 11 other states allowed 13-year-olds to wed?
Did you know if a girl under the age of 18 is having sex with a guy 18 or older, then he is committing a felony offense that could make him a sex offender?
Did you know 30% of women in the world are abused once by their partner or husband?
Did you know, from Me Too to How Will I Change, men can prevent abuse?
She's like the sunshine on the shore. I love my love, and love is no more. It's out of wild roses she made a bed, a stony pillow for her head. She laid her down, no word she spoke, until this fair maid's heart was broke. She's like the swallow that flies so high. She's like the river that never runs dry. She's like the sunshine on the leaf. I love my love, and love is no more. I love my love, and love is no
Together, we are strong. We can change it.
Together, we are powerful. We will change it. Hand on hand, we can create a new world.
The only thing constant is change. We will create an equal future.
The 3 C's in life: choices, chance, and change.
You
Must make a choice to take a chance, or your life will never change.
That was incredible. Many thanks once again to Pantia Zahari for her beautiful singing. Alina, Amethyst, Kiana, and Tara June, thank you so much, ladies. Such a young group of inspiring women. After all this, as you all can attest, the message is clear. We have to stay involved, and what better way than to register to vote? We have the lovely Netta Bellucci at the Farsi Voters Table. Please go and show your support at the Farsi Voters Table. We would also like to introduce today's sponsors. These are women-owned businesses that continue to sponsor this event, and they are Fariba Bograti Insurance Agency, Dr. Parisa Refat, DPT CLT Belmont Shore PT. I adore Parisa. She's a fellow Terp from the University of Maryland, so, way to go, go Terps. There's like 5 of us, okay? Layla Zamiri, DDS, Family Dental, or rather Dr. Layla Zamiri. Lily's Flower of Anaheim. Sponsoring organizations that aim to bring about positive change, a more balanced world, AAUW Long Beach, Children Today of Long Beach, Farsi Voters, Iranian Persian American Association of Greater Long Beach, Yes, IPAA, Iranian Children's Rights Society, the Shining Souls Institute, Women's March LA, and Women's Voices Now. Also, we have the incredible Real Image Media volunteering for photography. Many thanks to Real Image Media and for corporate promotion and web design. Thank you so much, Real Image Media. Thank you, Sina. Thank you. This next performance you guys are going to love. I've been loving the outfits all afternoon. It is not a celebration if we don't have music and dance. So here to perform the final segment of the program are the beautiful Hmong girls of Long Beach. Gao Hmong Long Beach will be performing a dance to a song called Nei Bei Kiao, Happy Hmong New Year. This song is about celebrating the Hmong New Year's, where there is festivities of ball tossing, food, and entertainment, a time of excitement, joyfulness, and happiness of everyone gathering in their traditional Hmong clothes. Gao Hmong Nu U, Shining Stars, will be performing a dance to a song called Hmong Ge Zi Gul, Hmong Way of Love. This song teaches us how to love one another and to be kind, something so lacking in today's world. Please give a warm welcome to the beautiful Hmong dancers of Long Beach. Woo-woo.
Be you lo nhỏ quá kỹ năng
Many thanks to the lovely, beautiful, and talented Hmong dancers of Long Beach. Thank you so much, ladies. And I just want to take a moment as a former journalist myself to thank my media friends, all gentlemen, showing up on Oscar Sunday. Many thanks to Frank Paris from Pinas Magazine and Maurice Dwayne Smith, who served our country, a veteran from Cold Heat News. Thank you so much, and Nuclear Popcorn. Thank you so much, fellas, and any other media people I've left out. Also, I see Mr. Reza Goharzad in the audience. I tip my hat to you, sir. Thank you so much. Always so supportive of our community with his lovely, lovely wife. And once again, now that I have the full name, I want to thank our amazing photographer, Sina Saperi from Real Image Media. Thank you so much, Sina. Thank you. You have to do your part to ensure the future for girls is bright, equal, safe, and rewarding. We encourage you to stay involved, become a member, share your ideas, and volunteer. Build your network, get informed, and inspire. Please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Visit our website, www.icwin.org. That's ICWIN.org. Contact us via email, icwin@winaction.org, which is ICWIN@WINACTION.org. As you well know, it takes a village and long, dedicated hours to put a program like this together. We would like to acknowledge our volunteers at this time. Volunteers Kiana, Mahtab, Nilufar, Persia, Parnion, Seper, and Tara. Thank you so much. Our graphic designer, Amin Afsia. Organizing members, Fariba Bograti, Leila Etelat, Pardis, Gandari, Patty Mostov, and Parisa Rafat. Thank you, ladies, lovely ladies. And our incredible steering committee. These women are dynamos. Miss Elahe Amani. Woo, Elahe, thank you. And thank you for the opportunity. Nazanin Amani, Shala Bibi, Afsana Khajavi, and Sudi Farokhnia. Thank you so much, ladies. You inspire me all the time. I just want to say thank you so much to all the vendors that joined us today. Please visit their table if you haven't to support them. And I just want to say it's truly been my honor to host this esteemed event. I am so inspired by all these women, and I will continue to be inspired by all these women. And many snaps to all the gentlemen in the audience and all your support for women. On this International Women's Day, I am so proud to have emceed this wonderful ICWIN event. I thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Many thanks. Thank you so much.